So let's get it started. And our first speaker is Hiroshi Shibata. So Hiroshi is the CEO of Agora IT Consulting. He's also a co-founder at Imagineers, Japan country manager at Mobile Unity, and business development manager at CHI Software Development Center. The topic of Hiroshi's presentation is how to sell to Japanese market. Hiroshi, please welcome on stage.
Thank you, Stas, for your introduction. So the topic of my presentation is how to sell to Japan. And who am I? My name is Hiroshi Shibata. I'm originally from Japan. I'm a Kiev-based IT consultant. I've been here since last year, December last year. I was educated overseas in California, UK, and Australia. And worked for investment banking as an IT consultant for over 10 years. I launched several startups since 2002. I moved to Europe in 2016. Currently, I'm based in Kiev, like I said. I wear several hats, as you can see. I'm a founder of and CEO of Agora IT Consulting, and I represent several companies, both Ukrainian and Japanese companies. You can read the name of the companies that I represent. Okay. My responsibility is to bridge between Japan and Ukraine in the sphere of IT. I also work as a blogger, and I write blog articles on one of the largest digital tech media in Japan called IT Media. And it's a SoftBank subsidiary. SoftBank I'll explain a little bit later. The blog title is Hidden Tech Nation, Ukraine. And you can take a look at my blog. Here's the URL. Unfortunately, it's all in Japanese, but you can use Google Translate. Yeah. All right. So one of my biggest achievements that you can see, I help IT Ukrainian Association and JASIPA, which is a Japanese IT association, to sign a memorandum of understanding last month. I invited the embassy people and a lot of press at the event, and it was quite big, and it made a huge publicity. So, how many of you guys been to Japan? Only one, okay. And what do you know about Japan? What's the first word that comes into? Okay, sushi. And what else?
Technology.
Anime, okay. Anything else? Huh? Expensive, yes. It is certainly, but I'll get that. It's not that actually expensive, huh? Hardworking. Robot, samurai, okay. Let's see what we have. Guza, okay. So we got geisha right here, and Pikachu, and sushi, of course. Where is Japan? You probably know where Japan is, but it's not. Of course, it's not in Africa or Europe. It's in Northeast Asia. Orange is Ukraine, and green is where Japan is. So it's pretty far, but a friend of mine said, actually, Japan and Ukraine are neighbors because there's only Russia in between. And that is true. And this is Japan. So that's Tokyo right there. Kyoto, which is an old town, like your Lviv equivalent. And that's Osaka. It's, I think, second or third biggest city. That's Fukuoka right there, almost South Korea. and that's my hometown. It's called Toyohashi. It's a small town, but that's where I'm from. So 5 facts about Japan. It's the 3rd largest economy in the world after USA and China. 11th largest population. We have 120 million people, as opposed to 45 million, I believe, that you guys have. Japan have provided monetary assistance of 3.1 billion as of 2017, which not many people are aware. 31 million foreigners, foreign tourists visited Japan in 2018. And actually 2% of the Japanese population is non-Japanese. So which is quite, you say Japan is quite homogeneous country, like monocultural, monoethnic. I believe that Ukraine is kind of something similar, but I know you have a lot more diversity. But Japan is a highly monocultural society. And here are the 5 myths about Japan. Japanese work to death. What we call karoshi, which in Japanese means overwork death. In fact, that's a big myth. Well, it was highlighted in the 1980s, but it's not. It doesn't happen that often. It could happen anywhere in the world. Japanese work long hours. Statistically speaking, Japanese don't work as long as Americans, Italians, Greeks, and South Koreans, which is hard to believe. And if you want to see the statistics, I can show you after the presentation. Japanese don't like foreigners. That's a huge misconception. In fact, not at all. In my personal experience, Japanese love foreigners, and they have great hospitality. Japan is very expensive. Actually, it is cheaper than many American cities. Well, San Francisco, New York. Certainly, a lot of cities in U.S. are nowadays far more expensive than Tokyo, for example, and Western Europe. Scandinavian cities are far more expensive nowadays. Japan is a world-leading tech country. I personally think it is a lie. We love paperwork and cash payment. A lot of restaurants and shops, they don't accept credit card, believe it or not. Huh? Yeah. So Japan, China, South Korea, people mix up those 3 countries often. Let's see the difference. China is a fast world, the most rapidly growing economy, and it's a huge market. However, it's highly competitive, too many regulations, uncertain laws, business culture, and as you probably know, the recent news that America declared an economic war against China. So it is very, very tough market to get into. South Korea, it is a free capitalistic nation. It is, well, they tend to make decisions much quicker. But the market itself is not as big as China or Japan. The population of 50 million as opposed to 12 million, 120 million and 1 billion in China. And also it is worth highlighting that the economy is highly monopolized by few big corporations such as Samsung, Hyundai, LG. I'll get to the Japan a little more detail, but Japan has a lot of advantages that, and it is worth to focus on as a marketplace where you sell your software, service, and product. Why should we sell to Japan? Can we just stick to US or European Union? I don't think so. I'll explain why. So benefits to enter the Japanese market. So as I mentioned, it's the third largest economy in the world. It is a free capitalistic economy, and it's highly flexible. It's protected by the rule of law, and our business culture tends to be very transparent and trustworthy. And you could expect once you build farm partnership with a Japanese company, it tends to last for a long time. So you could expect a long-term relationship once you establish the trust. So this is GDP ranking. So as I mentioned, USA, China, Japan, and all other countries, Germany, India, France, UK, all those countries are relatively tiny compared to, well, as you can see, USA is, of course, significantly larger than China. But Japan is still a third largest country in terms of GDP. Okay, so let's see, Ukraine and Japan relationship. So we have this export-import. You can see the figure. However, there are only 38 Japanese companies in Ukraine and only 219 Japanese people living in Ukraine. And I'm one of the 219, so I'm rare. If you compare that with Poland, your neighbor, so you can see the difference. So they have 1 billion. So as a part of the European Union, Poland has significantly larger trading volume between Japan and Poland. 303 Japanese companies as opposed to 38, and 1,776 Japanese people currently living in Poland. So the reason why I'm comparing with Poland, it is your neighbor, but Ukraine is trying to join in the European Union. So I personally think that it is a good example of where Ukraine is currently heading to. So these are the large Japanese corporations. How many companies do you know here? Okay, but a lot of people don't know Uniqlo, and I'll get to that. See, where? Oh, Kikkoman makes soy sauce. So if you go to Sushi or Eurasia or the sushi restaurant, like this is kind of this is a brand that makes soy sauce. Mizuno makes a sports goods. Huh? A lot of those companies that you see here are automobile companies. So, for example, Toyota, Suzuki, Honda, Subaru, Mazda, those are Mitsubishi, and Nissan, of course. All those companies are automobile. They make cars. Hitachi, Toshiba, they make electronics, and Sony, of course. And Nintendo, they make games like Super Mario, super popular game. Uniqlo is relatively unknown outside of Japan, I think. But in Europe, if you go to, for example, Germany, UK, France, they have. You might, if you ever travel to those countries, you probably have seen Uniqlo. It is apparel, clothing shop where they sell clothes. But actually, the CEO of Uniqlo is the richest man in Japan. So it is quite huge. Out of all the export of Japan, 23% of Japanese export consists of automotive and 38% electronics. So 61% is either automotive or electronics, and only 39% of Japanese export is other industry sector. So we are heavily, Japan is heavily relying on automotive and electronics export, since we have virtually no natural resource, and very few agriculture products. So mostly Japan import most of those from other countries. So let's see. This is a graph that shows big Japanese companies top 10. So Toyota, in terms of market cap, it is the largest Japanese company. By the way, Toyota is from my home prefecture, so I'm personally really glad to see this graph. And SoftBank. SoftBank, I'll get to that later, but it is an IT company. It's not a bank. It sounds like it's a bank, but it's not a bank. NTT is a telecom company. Keyence, IT, NTT Docomo, it's a mobile carrier, and etc. And if you just focus on internet and IT companies, and SoftBank is, as you can see, it's significantly larger than other companies, followed by Rakuten, and I'll explain that a bit later. And any other IT companies are, really tiny. What is SoftBank Group? So it was founded by a gentleman called Masayoshi Son. It is a Japanese telecom and IT company. He went to University of California, Berkeley, and his personal net worth is $23 billion. Currently, second richest man in Japan. And he's a 43rd richest man in the world, according to Forbes, as of 2019. His company invests in Uber, Slack, Boston Dynamics, Sprint, WeWork, some of the tech firms in Silicon Valley. But below is his brother, Taizo Son, and he's most notably well known as an investor of Lift 99, which is an Estonian co-working space incubator ecosystem for startup firms. Lift 99, as you probably know, does anyone know what Lift 99 is? Lift 99 has opened the first branch outside of Estonia in Kiev. I believe that it was 2 months ago. And it is a very, I think it's one of the most well-known co-working space or incubating community for startup in the world, because Estonia is a small country. It has a population of 1 million. However, from Lift 99, there are 4 unicorns came out. Unicorn, 1 billion company, 1 billion and non-public companies. That's the definition of unicorn. But 4 unicorns from Lift 99 itself. That is quite big for a country with a population of 1 million people. And he also invests in many startups in Eastern Europe, including Ukraine. What is Rakuten? It's basically Japanese Amazon. They provide e-commerce platform, also IT and e-banking and telecom. The founder and CEO, his name is Hiroshi Mikitani. He has the same first name as me, Hiroshi. I went to Harvard Business School, and his personal net worth is $5.72 billion. He's the 4th richest man in Japan. And I should also note that in 2014, Rakuten acquired a Ukrainian IT company called Slice from Odessa for $1 billion. So they also invest in Ukraine as well. What are the challenges to enter Japanese market. Let's take a look. Distance. So the time difference at the moment, it's because it's a summertime. At the moment it's 6 hours. I personally don't think it's a problem because if you think about how many Ukrainian companies are doing business with Silicon Valley, the time difference between here and West Coast of the U.S. is 11 hours. Culture, slow decision making. So if you ever done businesses with Japanese company, and especially the traditional and large scale Japanese company, and you might notice that they tend to make decisions very slowly. And I'll get to this in detail a little later. But those cultural differences could be bottleneck when you do business with Japanese company. And language barrier, of course. Most Ukrainian IT engineers, in my personal opinion, they're extremely fluent in English, like you guys. But Japanese engineers, I think their weakness is the conversational English. But most of them can read and write. But I think the oral communication could be problematic. But that could be overcome. There are several ways to overcome language barrier. And the cost. Doing business in Japan can be very expensive. But there's also a way to mitigate the cost when you're doing business in Japan. And demanding customers. Japanese companies are very quality conscious, and they can be very demanding when it comes to deadlines. But that could be the same as any other companies that from anywhere else. And competition, of course, it is a problem. It is a big market, so therefore there are more competitors. So why is selling in Japan so difficult? So I can point out 5 mistakes that foreign companies commonly make when they try to sell something to Japan. First of all, you need to hire a Japanese sales team. They know the market, they know the language, they know the culture. You need to hire either external or internal. I would strongly recommend to hire a Japanese sales team. And you cannot treat Japanese market the same way as anywhere else. As I do have to admit that Japan is a special market, and there are several differences and there are several things that you need to keep in mind. And also, like a lot of foreign companies, they tend to manage their local businesses from headquarters and micromanage. And that is also something that I would not recommend. You have to give a certain level of autonomy to the local sales team because they are the specialists, they know the market. Also, you need to understand the local demand, and also for that, I will recommend the local team. I will recommend the management to let local team to decide what marketing strategy they should adopt. And you need to invest a certain amount of money and the time to show your commitment to the market. So these are the companies that failed in the Japanese market that I would point out. Vodafone, as you probably know what Vodafone does, it's a mobile carrier. Came to Japan in the early 2000s, but the operation only lasts for several years, and they quickly sold their local operation to SoftBank. eBay, we already have a platform, local platform called Yahoo Auction. And American automobile companies, a lot of them are not very successful in Japan because they don't understand the local market. American cars are just too big for Japanese streets. They don't seem to understand that we have small streets and you can't really drive American cars in Japan because they're just too big. Uber. Uber is surprisingly not. It's like highly regulated in Japan because there's a strict regulations. And WhatsApp. Finally, we have our own WhatsApp equivalent app. It's called Line. So those are the companies that aren't successful in Japan. As opposed to the company I listed out, these are the successful examples of companies that are huge, has huge success in Japan. And you might notice that there's a World of Tanks. That's a Belarusian computer game company. I'll explain how they succeeded in the Japanese market. So I'm gonna have to play a little bit of video. I hope there's sound. Is there sound? Yeah. Okay, so. All right. So is there sound? I hope there's sound. Actually, to explain, I like this company because I visited Belarus in 2003, and I met the founder of this company. He was running this company with 5 people in a very old-fashioned, very old Soviet apartment. And now they employ 5,000 people across the globe. They're very, very successful. The founder's name is Viktor Kisly. So at that time, I didn't know that this company could be, and he's the first billionaire from Belarus, and I think I think he's the richest man from Belarus. So okay. So let's see. Oh, still no sound. Is there? Well, I don't need to have sound, I guess. I don't know.
Let's try it once more.
Okay, let's try once more. All right. So I would like to explain how they succeeded in the Japanese market. Okay, I'll try again. And if it doesn't work, just forget it. Okay, it's not working. All right, so you can just focus on what you see. Okay, so they had the. Okay, basically, as you can see, they had a tie-up with anime. And this is an anime called Girls and Panzer. So basically, when World of Tanks first came to Japan, they weren't very successful, but we had an anime that is a bunch of schoolgirls hop into the tanks and they fight each other. It's called Girls and Panzer. So basically, when they started collaborating each other, it just changed the whole perception of this game in Japan, and they became extremely successful. So this is just one of the examples that your neighbor Belarus, they successfully penetrated into Japanese market by collaborating with a local anime, and basically that's what they did. So you might want to use it as a successful case study of how you can sell your product or services to Japan. Okay, so we have. I would like to introduce 5 tips of how do we sell to Japanese. So number one, um, so Ukrainian IT companies are extremely experienced in working globally, namely Silicon Valley and European Union. I want you to emphasize that your global experience when you sell also to Japanese. And Ukrainian engineers, relatively reasonable, compared to Japanese engineers. So, and the quality, of course. And you have the last time I checked, Ukraine has 200,000 IT engineers. So that is quite large. And Japan needs 300,000 AI engineers by the year 2020. By the way, we have Olympic next year. So if you have a chance to visit Japan for Olympic, I will highly recommend to visit. 600,000 AI engineers by the year 2030. And cutting edge technology such as AI, machine learning, IoT, and drone, blockchain, etc. So you have, your engineers have those cutting edge technologies and originality. So those are the things that you need to kind of emphasize when you sell your service and product to Japanese. Number two, be exotic. Don't try to do the same as what Japanese companies are doing. I list out some of the companies that are successful and differentiate themselves from the Japanese competitors. For example, Harley Davidson, right? They're not competing with Yamaha or Kawasaki. They're selling something different. They're selling very unique, very American. And this is the kind of things that Japanese people find very exotic. Italian and French high-end brands such as Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Chanel, Scandinavian furnitures. Japanese people love something exotic. How do we say? So emphasize the global standard. That's number three. And I want to introduce the word Galapagos syndrome. What does it mean? And that means, Galapagos is an island that is close to Ecuador. Things evolve uniquely. They have a separate ecosystem. They have iguana. And what it means is that we have a lot of technologies that is uniquely evolved in Japan. One of the examples is it's called iMode, and that is smartphone before smartphone. So we have this flip-flop phone, old-fashioned phone that we could use to make a payment and watch TV and also internet surf. And that was way before iPhone came out. That was like early 2000. And some people said, Steve Jobs stole this idea and came up with iPhone. I'm not sure if it's true though. But the problem was iMode was only being used in Japan because they used different bandwidths and different technologies that aren't compatible with the rest of the world. And I think the reason of this syndrome is that we had 300 years of isolated era. We used to have samurai ruling the country, and we weren't trading or interacting with the rest of the world. And Japan is an island country, so we have this insular mentality that they weren't previously willing to interact with the rest of the world. And also, I'd like to point out that Japan has never been colonized by the West. If you look at the countries such as Singapore, Hong Kong, they're despite the fact that they are located in Asia, you can do business in the same way as you do in the West because of their colonized history, and they share the same law and culture. So, but whereas Japan, due to this history, and it is quite different from the rest of the world. Number 4, don't be too aggressive. So Japanese respect, harmony, which we call it in Japanese wa. So that means we try to avoid the conflict, and also we tend to work on long term and find a long term partnership. So do not rush into the short term profit, and just think for a long term, and try to build the relationship first, and then you can do good business together. But to do that, try to first don't be too aggressive, because they might be intimidated or scared. So this is the last point, but learn the culture a little bit. So Japanese love welcoming foreigners. We are known to have a great hospitality. But however, I will strongly encourage you guys to study a little bit about Japan when you interact with Japanese customers, or when you ever visit Japan. Such as, we have 3 different alphabets, and we address people by the last name with san. So my last name is Shibata, so people might call me Shibata-san, but I don't want to be called Shibata-san, but you can just call me Hiroshi. But some people might prefer to be addressed in that way. So that kind of small things, I think it's good to know before you visit Japan, or even before you start doing business with Japanese. So how to establish contacts with Japanese companies? So I list out some of the things that I find useful. So like I said, discussed hire Japanese sales agent, and try to have your brochure, any marketing materials, a website up in Japanese. I will recommend you to translate so that they can read, and use local business development or consulting firm. And if you have any friends or any acquaintance from Japan, or people who know Japan already, try to use that network and connection as much as possible. And cold approaching, that means you can just send out emails to big Japanese companies. And I will recommend you to do that in Japanese. And Agora can help you. All this. Japanese decision-making process can be very slow. We typically, this is not always true when it comes to startup firms. This is very, very common when it comes to more larger scale Japanese companies that have long history, more traditional and large scale Japanese companies tend to adopt this approval process. We call it ringisho, which can be directly translated into to request for approval. And what does this mean? It's a bottom-up approval process. So in the West, or American or European companies, typically it's a top-down approval process. So if CEO or management decide to go for one direction, and then the rest of the employees or the rest of the company follows. However, bottom-up approval process means that any employees can make a proposal and get approval from the top management. The advantage of this is that it is, since this requires approval by more stakeholders, so it is more democratic. And however, it's extremely time-consuming because it has to be approved by every single board members and management, all the stakeholders. So that is a downside, but there are some pros and cons. But the like I said, the startup and the smaller and newer Japanese company, they don't necessarily follow this approval process. So some of the companies that you might deal with, they make very quick decision. But this is just a typical, a more traditional approval process. And if you have, how many minutes do we have left?
Just 1 minute and then the questions.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah, you can wrap up.
All right,
basically.
so I'm just going to hurry. So the American company, sometimes CEO gets 1,200 times more salary than the average employee. That's an example of Walmart. Walmart is an American supermarket department store, whereas Toyota, 46 times. So it's more kind of equal distribution of wealth. And lastly, I think this is the last slide. A lot of Japanese companies, or traditional and more old Japanese companies, they're known to have lifetime employment and promotion by seniority. So that means once you get a job, you can pretty much, a lot of people actually work for the same company for the rest of their lives. And also, like the longer you work, the higher position that you need, you will be appointed. So, but this was the case previously, but nowadays it's not always true. So more people job hop and change jobs every year, or it depends on also the industry sector as well. So this is a summary of what I just discussed today. And now I'm open for any question that you have. And if you want to contact me, here's my email and the Facebook and Twitter. You can, and that's my blog. And if you want to study Japanese, you can try to read my blog. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hiroshi. Now it's time for questions, and I already see hands over there. So just raise your hand, and I'll give you a chance to ask you a question.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, my name is Astamur, and I have two questions. The first one will be about the competitors. From what I've seen, heard, whatever, I don't have such knowledge as you do, but the issue is that the Asian market is mostly closed. It works with Vietnam, etc., etc., etc. in Asia, and it's really hard to get there. Second, how long do you think let's say the sales funnel goes with Japan, from the first meeting, from the cold email, or from talking to you to the point where they are going to talk to you and then you're closing them? How many months? Maybe half a year, maybe a year. The corporate sales can be long. And I think that's it. That will be enough.
Okay, so to answer the first question, I think you pointed out the example of Vietnam, or it could be China. Okay, so I think Japan is not closed at all, in my opinion. For example, like Donald Trump always said, Japanese car industry is very closed, and we don't buy American cars, and that is not true actually, because there's higher tariff to export Japanese cars to the U.S. and the other way around. So that's just an example. And when it comes to IT, yeah, China is a very, very closed market. Even Google or Twitter or what else, like Amazon couldn't penetrate into China because of the regulation. But when it comes to Japan, virtually there's no tariff, there's no wall. So basically you can any foreign company can just go there, sell whatever you want to sell. And I personally think that Japan is a very special market in Asia. So there's virtually no wall, or there's nothing that prohibits you to sell anything. And the second question, so it really depends on the size of the company. I mean, the Japanese company that I'm helping right now, if they are interested in your product and service, they can just meet you right away. I can just set up a conference call right away after maybe a few conversations, maybe in a few days even. So what I just talked about in my presentation is actually more traditional and bigger size companies. And sometimes those companies, yes, it's a pain. It takes could be several. It could take several months to actually get to meet the management, but I think it really depends on the company. What I see is in IT, they make quicker decision than other industry sector. So I would say it really depends on the size of the company and the corporate culture, but it could be very, very quick. But I wouldn't say that it would take like several months, or I think they tend to, if you want to, I don't know what your business does, but I think if you only look at IT, I don't think it will take that long time.
Oh, Lila has a question.
Really?
Oh, you have a mic? You can use this one.
Better this one. Thanks a lot. Hiroshi, thank you very much for such a great presentation, first of all. And my question is about the necessity to have a Japanese representative, either here or let's say in Japan. As far as I know, about 80% of the population in Japan, they don't speak Japanese. Is that true? Like,
They don't speak Japanese or English?
Oh, English, sorry. Yeah, that was great. You got me. Okay. Right. So, yes, they don't speak English. So what's your take on that? Yeah. Do you think you would agree with this statement? And do you think it's really, like a must-have to have a Japanese representative?
I think, you need to have a Japanese representative, not only because of the language, because I would say most big Japanese company, they have international division, and they normally have English speakers and like international sales who are fluent in English, and also like the smaller scale startups, because they have to be competitive, so they tend to hire English speakers and to be more internationally competitive. But I would recommend that you need to hire Japanese sales agent, because they know the market, and they know what. They know how to interact with Japanese companies, and they know what the demand of the end client. So all those things, it takes, if you train, for example, Ukrainian salesperson to kind of educate or train all this, and it might take 1 or 2 years. And instead of if you have plenty of time, and the money that you can invest, it makes perfect sense. But I think the quicker way is to hire like a Japanese sales representative or consulting firm, external business development team, because they are the specialists. They know how to sell and what the local demand is. So for that reason, not only the language, but for that reason, I would recommend to hire a Japanese sales agent, and this is what I do as well. So,
any other questions? We can take a really quick question. Okay, just one.
Hello, my name is Anna. Following your previous answer, I would like to ask, what is the approximate cost of the salesperson in Japan? Because I don't know anything about the salaries rate. And how do you recommend to put KPIs or whatever, how to put in the right plan for them entering the Japanese market?
So, I mean, sorry, first of all, what industry sector are you? Are you IT? Okay. So, approximate cost of salesperson, it is very hard to quantify because it really depends on the seniority and it also like what IT industry sector that you are, because there's finance IT or like fintech, or there's business process, like maybe, yeah, so there's all different types of sector. I would say that if you hire a sales representative that are willing to work on a full commission basis, so basically, you know, when they bring business and they close a deal and you give certain percentage of this revenue to the salesperson, and that kind of deal, I think, will be probably you can minimize the risk that way. A lot of sales person in Japan. I think full commission is the sales person that would work on the full commission basis. I think it might be hard to find. So that because most sales guys demand to have like a fixed monthly base on the top of the commission that they will earn. But I think, you know, as a start, maybe if you can hire an external sales agent who will work on a full commission basis. I think that will be, and I can't say the figure off the top of my head, but well, certainly, you know, we're certainly like more than Ukraine for sure. I hope that's I hope that's answering your question. Yeah.
Thank you, Hiroshi. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Не чути. О, тепер чути, супер. Друзі, у мене є така одна ремарочка. Як казав класик, дуже класно бачити, що в залі дуже багато айфонів, але ми записуємо це все діло, і також запис всієї конференції разом з презентаціями ми вам надішлемо, тому можете не напружуватися, просто получайте кайф. Але коли хочете фотографувати, будь ласка. Ні, звичайно, я просто бачу, що ви презентацію фотографуєте, тому хотів вам нагадати, що презентацію і разом з відеозаписом повністю отримаєте всі до одного після конференції. Угу.